Good morning, all of you. I hope you have understood the previous class which we had done yesterday. So, continuing that class, we will cover some more topics in the same chapter. So, first of all, we will revise what is abscissa and ordinates, which we had learned in the last class, which was our last topic. Then we will learn about what are quadrants. We will plot some line graphs and we will also plot some linear equation line graphs. So starting with abscissa and ordinate, as I have told you in the last class, that when we plot any graph and x dash, this is our origin. When we plot any graph, the first coordinate of a point which we plot over this graph, suppose the coordinates of this point is 2, 3. So this first value, or we can say the first coordinate of this point, which is a point A, this is known as abscissa, and the second coordinate of this point is known as ordinate. What this abscissa and ordinates are? This abscissa represents the value of x-axis. It shows the value which we plot over the x-axis. And this ordinate indicates the value which we plot over the y-axis. Okay. So you can say that the first value of this coordinate represent the value of x-axis where the point lies. It should be here. And the value of y indicates the value of coordinate lies over the y-axis. Okay. So abscissa precedes the ordinate means we always write the value of x-axis first and value of y-axis on the second place in our coordinate, in our coordinate of the point. Position of the point with reference to coordinate axis. That means we always position our points with respect to this origin. We always start our counting from this origin position, which is a 0, 0. So when we plot any point over x-axis, we start counting from this 0 towards the x-axis. Or if we want to plot any point over y-axis or minus y-axis, we always count it from this origin point, which is 0. Here the y value is 0. So start counting from here towards the positive side of y to get the positive value of y, and start counting downwards toward the negative axis of y to find the negative value of y. So this point indicates this. Now coming to quadrants. What are quadrants? So simply if I again plot a graph xo x dash, yo y dash, the same thing which we had learned earlier. This side denotes the positive side of x, this side denotes the negative side of x. Similarly, this side indicates the positive side of y and this side indicates the negative side of y. So whenever any point lies here, which is known as the first quadrant, this point indicates the positive value of x and positive value of y. So both the points of coordinates of this point should be positive in the first quadrant, because whichever point will come under this quadrant, here your x and y will always be positive. Remember, this denotes the x-axis and this denotes the y-axis. So if I plot a point 1, 2, both of the coordinates are positive. So this point will lie in the first quadrant, because here the x is also positive and y is also positive. Understood? Now coming to the second quadrant. This is our second quadrant. So in this quadrant, the abscissa or the x-axis point will always be negative. First we write the abscissa and then we write the ordinate. So abscissa is the point over x-axis. So when we move through our origin towards the negative side of x-axis, the value of x will always be negative. And when we move from origin to upwards or the positive side of y, the value of y will always be positive. So in this quadrant, your abscissa will always be negative and ordinate will always be positive. So whichever point you will plot in this quadrant, that indicates you the value of x as a negative value and a value of y as a positive value. Okay? So there is no need of remembering which quadrant have which sign. You just remember that on this side you have a positive x-axis and in this side you have a positive y-axis. So whichever point will lie under this quadrant, here your x is also positive and y is also positive. Similarly, on the second side, on the second quadrant, our x is negative axis and y is a positive. So whichever point lie in this quadrant will have a negative x and positive y. Coming to our third quadrant, here you can see that this quadrant, all the points in this quadrant lie under two axes which are negative x and negative y. So all the points which have negative x and negative y will come under this third quadrant. Okay? And similarly, in our fourth quadrant, this quadrant lie under positive x and negative y. So all the points which come under this quadrant will have a positive x and negative y. Understood? So there is some points like this, point 42, which is a point, which is the coordinate of a point. Here you can see we have positive x and positive y. So in which quadrant this point will lie? This will lie in the first quadrant, where we have x also positive 1 and y is also positive 1. If we see this B point where x is negative and y is positive, so where in which quadrant do you have x negative and y positive? You have x negative here and y positive here. So in this quadrant this point will lie, which is the second quadrant. Third point, we have -4 and -5. Both of them are negative. So x negative and y negative. So this point will lie under this quadrant, which is a third quadrant. If we see this point 5 and -2, here x is 5, or you can say your abscissa is 5 and ordinate is negative. This will lie in the fourth quadrant, where you have a positive x and negative y. Understood? So each point in this plane is located either in one quadrant or on the axis. On the axis means there is a case where you have this point also, 0, 3. So where you plot this 0 over the x-axis, this is your origin point over where your x is 0. If your x is 1, you will come here, or x is 2 is, you will come here. But here your value of x is 0, so you will plot it here. And +3 over y-axis comes out to be here. So your point will lie over this axis, which is 0, 3. Understand the point? So we will learn more points like this in the coming class. So we had covered coordinate axis. These are the terms which we use in this plotting. So coordinate axes are your x o x dash, y o y dash. This is known as coordinate axis. Over where you are plotting this, these axes are known as coordinate plane, and these are called your quadrants. Where these axes divides this plane into 4 parts, these parts are known as your quadrants. Continuing with the same topic, as I have told you earlier also, coordinate of origin is always 0, 0. Okay. Remember what is origin? This one is origin, which we denote with 0, 0. Because the coordinates of this point, here your x is also 0 and y is also 0. Okay. Now see, for a point in x-axis, ordinate is 0. So the coordinate of point is x0. If I plot any point over the x-axis, this is your axis. If I plot any point here and I want to know the coordinates of this point, what you can see here is you have some value for x, okay, but no value for y because it is lying over the x-axis. So in this case your ordinate will become 0. Why 0? Because there is no value for y, only we have a value for x. Suppose this I denote as 4 point, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the coordinate of this point A would be, first we write the abscissa, which is x-axis value. So we write 4. Because there is no y value here, because y is 0 or the ordinate value is 0, we write this as 0. So the coordinates of this point A would be 4, 0 over the x-axis. Okay, so all the points which lie over x-axis, either on the negative side or the positive side, your y coordinate will always be 0. If it would be on the negative side, the coordinates of this point A dash would be -4, 0. Why 0? Because there is no y value here on this point. If it would be here, suppose 1, 2, 3 and 4. If it would be here, then the coordinates of the point will change. Why? Because there is some value for y also here on this point. So first we write the abscissa, which is -4, and then we write the ordinate value, which is 3. Understood? So remember, for any point which is lying over x-axis, there is some value for abscissa, but there is no value for ordinate, or we can say there is a value for x coordinate but no value for y coordinate. So y coordinate value is always 0 over x-axis, any point lying over x-axis. Now similarly, if we can say if we plot any point over y-axis, okay, 1, 2, 3, what would happen? If I want you to write the coordinates of this point B, what you can see here is you have a value of y, but there is no value for x here because it is lying over y-axis. Okay, so the coordinate of this point would be, x will become 0 and y would be 3. In the same manner as we discussed for x-axis point, any point over y-axis have the coordinates where x will become 0 or the abscissa will be 0 and the ordinate will be the point, value of point where the point is lying. Okay, so it's very simple. I hope you have understood till now. So we will moving to the next topic, which is our line graph. Okay, now as you have understood that any point which lies over the x-axis have a value of x but no value for y coordinates. Okay, in the similar manner, if we want to draw a line graph for all the values for equation x equal to 0 or x equal to a or x equal to -2, let's see what will happen. These are our axes, x o x dash and y o y dash. What do you mean by x equal to 0? Where this point will lie? This will lie here, where there is no value for x. Okay? So if we plot any line through this point, we have to make a perpendicular over this to make a line which will pass through this x equal to 0. So what this line is? This is our y-axis. Okay, so at x equal to 0, the line would be our y-axis. If I had taken this variable as a, value of x here is a. So for any value of x equal to a or b or c, we just take a point here, and suppose the distance from origin of this point is a. So this point will indicate the value of x as a. So if we make a perpendicular line which will pass through this point, this line's equation would be x equal to a. Okay, because a value is variable value, we can put any value in place of a. The line would be parallel to y-axis at a distance of a. So if we want to plot x equal to minus 2, here the value of x is minus 2, so we will move towards negative axis of x from the origin. How much steps? 2 steps. So this would be our point where the distance of the point from x-axis is 2, but we indicate it with minus 2 because it's on the negative side. So this point, when this point is x equals to minus 2, and if we plot a perpendicular line through this point, okay, so this line's equation would be x equal to minus 2. Understood? Which would be parallel to y-axis. So for any line equation where x is equal to some value, then we have to find that value over the x-axis and make a perpendicular line passing through that point. That line will always indicate the line graph of such equations, x equal to a, x equal to 0, x equal to minus 2 and so on, which would be parallel to y-axis. Now if the equation is like this, where y equal to 0, y equal to a and y equal to minus 2, what would happen? Y equal to 0 would lie on this point, on the origin only. So if we plot a perpendicular line from this origin, that would indicate what? That would indicate our x-axis. And if we mark any point from origin towards the positive side of y at a distance of a, and we make a perpendicular line passing through that point, that line, the equation would be y equal to a. In the same manner as we have done for x graph. For plotting y equals to 2, minus 2, we have to move from our origin to the negative side of y, and again we have to make a perpendicular line passing through that point. This line indicates the equation y equals to minus 2. Or you can write this equation as y plus 2 equal to 0. This is also same. Here you also will get value of y as minus 2. Okay. So I hope you have understood what we have learned today. In the next class, we will have some more topics related to coordinate geometry. We will cover up those. So till then, just revise what I have taught you today and yesterday.